Dormitory Secrets. The dorm room was nothing special. Standard twin beds, beige walls, and a pair of narrow desks crammed into the small space. It was what I expected from college housing. My new roommate, Ethan, seemed quiet but nice enough when we first met. We exchanged the usual pleasantries, then got busy unpacking our things, each absorbed in our own thoughts. There was an odd moment when I first entered the room, though. I found Ethan standing by the window, staring out at nothing in particular. When he noticed me, he turned, his face a blank slate, before a slight smile curled at the edges of his lips. I shrugged it off, thinking he was probably just lost in thought. As the first couple of weeks passed, I noticed little quirks about Ethan. He was oddly meticulous, lining up his books and clothes with almost military precision. He was quiet, almost unnervingly so, but polite enough. We shared brief conversations about classes, the weather, and our mutual hatred of the cafeteria food. Everything seemed normal, until the first night it happened. I woke up in the middle of the night, the room bathed in a dim, bluish glow from the streetlights outside. I felt a presence, a weight pressing down on my chest, like when you wake up and think someone's watching you. My eyes darted around, adjusting to the darkness, and then I saw him. Ethan was standing at the foot of my bed, staring down at me. His eyes were wide open, unblinking, his expression unreadable. For a moment, I was frozen, trying to process what I was seeing. My heart pounded in my chest, a primal fear kicking in. "Ethan?" My voice cracked with sleep and confusion. He didn't respond. He just stood there like a statue, his gaze fixed on me. The silence was deafening, the tension thick in the air. Finally, I cleared my throat, louder this time. "Ethan, what are you doing?" Slowly, almost mechanically, he turned and walked back to his bed, lying down without a word. I sat up, staring at the back of his head, trying to figure out what had just happened. Sleepwalking, I decided. He must be sleepwalking. It was the only explanation that made sense. The next morning I hesitated to bring it up, unsure how to approach the topic. But Ethan acted as though nothing had happened, cheerfully asking if I wanted to grab breakfast together. I brushed it off as a weird one-time thing and let it go. But it wasn't a one-time thing. It happened again the following night, and the night after that. Each time, I woke to find Ethan standing over me, his eyes locked onto mine, his body stiff and unnatural. Each time I called out to him, and he would silently return to his bed as if nothing was wrong. By the fourth night, I was on edge, my nerves frayed. I tried confronting him during the day, asking if he remembered anything strange about the night before. He only shook his head, looking genuinely puzzled. "You've been standing over my bed at night, Ethan," I said, watching his reaction closely. "You don't remember?" His expression was blank, but I noticed his hands trembling slightly. I don't remember anything like that," he stammered. "Maybe it's just a dream?" It didn't feel like a dream. It felt too real, too vivid. But I had no proof, no way to show him what was happening. And that made it even more terrifying. One night, unable to sleep, I started researching the dorm online. I needed to know if something had happened here, if there was any logical explanation for Ethan's bizarre behavior. It was late, and the only sounds were the faint hum of the mini-fridge and Ethan's steady breathing from the other side of the room. After what felt like hours of searching, I finally stumbled upon a news article buried deep in the archives. The headline made my blood run cold. "Student dies in dormitory accident. Tragic fall from window." I clicked on the article, my heart pounding in my chest. It was about a student who had lived in our very room the year before. According to the report, he had fallen from the window late one night, his body found on the pavement below. The death was ruled an accident, though details were vague. But that wasn't the worst part. The article mentioned the name of his roommate. Ethan Ward. I stared at the screen, my mind racing. Ethan had been the roommate of the student who died. That couldn't be a coincidence. I glanced over at Ethan, sleeping soundly in his bed, and felt a cold shiver run down my spine. The next day, I confronted him again. "Ethan, I found something online about the guy who lived here before us." His face turned pale, and he avoided my gaze. I don't want to talk about it," he muttered, his voice shaky. But I pressed on. "You were his roommate, weren't you? The one who died?" Ethan finally looked at me, his eyes filled with fear. It was an accident, he whispered. He started acting strange, just like you're describing. Standing over my bed, staring at me. I tried to help him, but one night he just fell. I felt a chill creep over me. Fell? Or was he pushed? Ethan's eyes widened, and he shook his head vigorously. No, I didn't push him. He just fell." But there was something in his voice, a crack, a note of desperation that made me doubt his words. That night, I could barely keep my eyes closed. I lay there, my muscles tense, waiting for Ethan to get up again. But when I finally drifted off, I was startled awake by a loud thud. I bolted upright, my heart racing. Ethan's bed was empty. I rushed to the window, throwing it open, and looked down. There, on the cold pavement below, was Ethan, lying still as a statue. It had happened again, the same horrible pattern, repeating itself. I couldn't stay in that room after that. They said Ethan had been sleepwalking, that it was a tragic accident, but I knew better. The dorm had a secret, something dark and malevolent that preyed on its occupants, and I was next. I packed my things and moved out the very next day, leaving the cursed room behind. But even now, as I lie awake in my new dorm, I can't shake the feeling that someone, or something, is watching me. And every time I close my eyes, I see Ethan's lifeless stare, burned into my memory, a constant reminder that some secrets should never be uncovered.